Today's topic of discussion, why you keep reverting back to your old self. Listen to me when you keep going backwards the moment things start to get hard. You've done the work, you've made the shift. For weeks now, or maybe even longer, you have genuinely been becoming somebody different. New habits, new standards, and a new way of carrying yourself. And then, something goes wrong. A stressful week, a setback, maybe an argument, even a bad night's sleep, a missed deadline, or a problem that you didn't see coming. And within hours, sometimes within minutes, you're back. Those old habits, those old reactions, and that old version of you like it never left. And then comes the part that actually hurts. The voice that says, see, this is who you really are. That new version, they were never real. It was just a performance. And the second things got hard, the mask came off. But here is what I want you to hear today. That voice is lying to you, but the reversion itself, that is real and it is not random, because pressure does not create who you are. Pressure reveals who you've actually become so far. And what it reveals, it isn't failure, it's information. And in this video, I'm going to show you what that information actually means and how you can use it to build an identity that holds even when things get hard, not just when life is easy. Think about it this way. When things are calm and when life is going well, when there is no pressure on you, almost anyone can act like the person that they're trying to become. It's easy to be patient when nothing is testing your patience. It's easy to be disciplined when nothing is competing for your attention. And it's easy to hold your new standards when nothing is pushing against them. Calm conditions, they don't test identity. They just let you perform it. And pressure is not different. Pressure removes the slack. It strips away the conditions that were making the new behavior easy. And what is left is whatever was actually building what is underneath. So when you revert under pressure, it's not that pressure makes you revert back to your old self. It's that pressure removed those favorable conditions that were propping the new self up. And what was underneath was partly still the old wiring, because that part hadn't been tested or rebuilt yet. This isn't a verdict on the whole shift. It's a map of what exact parts of the shift are actually solid and what parts were holding on just because the conditions were easy. So remember that pressure, it doesn't expose the fake version of you. It exposes the parts of the new version that hasn't been pressure tested yet. And now, you know exactly where to focus. So here is what usually happens next. And this is the part that actually causes the most damage. You revert. And then on top of reverting, you have a reaction to reverting. It's shame, frustration, and that voice again saying, I knew it. I'm not actually different and nothing has changed. And here is the problem with that reaction. It doesn't just feel bad. It actively works against you. Because now you're not just dealing with one moment of reversion. You are dealing with the story. You started telling yourself about what that moment means. And that story tends to create more of exactly what that behavior is framed from. Shame does not motivate change. Shame justifies giving up. It says, I've already proven that I'm still the old version. So what is the point in trying for the rest of the day? And that is where the spiral goes. One moment of reversion is just one moment. It's a data point and nothing more. But one moment of reversion plus a shame spiral becomes a complete write-off of a day, sometimes even a write-off week. The reversion itself is rarely the real damage, but it's the story that you tell about the reversion that is. So remember, just a moment of reverting only costs you a moment, but the shame spiral afterwards is what will cost you the entire day. And shame has not ever once built the identity that you are trying to build. So if reversion isn't failure, and the shame spiral is the real problem, what should you actually do with a moment of reversion? You treat it as information. Specifically, it tells you what the gap is between who you are right now and who you're trying to become under pressure. Call it the integrity gap. Not in the moral sense, but in the structural sense. Integrity, as in, does the structure hold under load? Every time that you revert, you just found a specific point where the structure doesn't hold. Not the whole structure, but a specific point. Maybe it's a particular type of stress. Maybe it's a particular time of day. Or maybe it's a particular person or situation that reliably holds you back. And that is not vague. That's specific. And specific is useful. Most people respond to the reversion by zooming out. They say, I failed at this whole identity thing. But the useful response is to zoom in. So they now say, this specific situation under a specific kind of pressure is where the old pattern still wins. Now I know. So you can't pressure test everything inside of your imagination. You will only find out where the gaps are by living through pressure and watching what happens. So every reversion is actually doing something for you. It is mapping the gap for free with real data and no guesswork. So remember, you don't build a pressure-proof identity by avoiding pressure. You build it by allowing pressure to show you exactly where those gaps are. An experience for myself where I kept reverting back to an old identity was again within my running journey. And I've probably mentioned this somewhere in the series before, but before I built genuine consistency and shifted my identity from someone that wanted to get into running or was trying to run and shifted into someone who was a runner, it was when I would get to a specific point in my running journey, whether that be a level of fitness or a level of stacked mileage throughout the week, and I would allow myself to just pass on that session. And then I would keep reverting back to the old self who didn't actually take action in their sessions and would skip their sessions. And until I finally broke through that point and I grasped the moment of where the pressure would be applied to a certain degree that it would make me revert back, and I started to shift from the identity of someone that is trying to get into running and someone that is a runner, then I started to keep moving forward, and I would compound daily from those single decisions of, I'm not going to skip this session. I am not going to hold back from hitting the paces in the session. I am not going to prevent myself from going out and attaining the fitness goals I've set for myself because the situation or circumstance aren't the perfect conditions. And once I broke through that barrier and noticed where the pressure was being applied and was expanding and expressing that gap, then I got to step into the new identity that I now call mine. So now I'm going to show you 3 moves that builds identity that holds under pressure. Step 1. Name the trigger specifically. After reversion, don't ask yourself, why am I like this? Ask, what specifically has just happened right before I reverted? What was the pressure? What was the condition? What was depleted? Was it time, energy, sleep, or support? The more specific that you get, the more useful that information becomes. I always do this is useless. It's days I do this when I haven't eaten properly and someone will challenge me unexpectedly. That is the map. Step 2. Separate the moment from the story. When you notice yourself reverting, there is the action itself. And then there's the commentary that starts immediately after. Practice catching the commentary before it runs. That is one data point, it's not a verdict. And this isn't about not caring. It's about not allowing one moment to write a story for the rest of your day. And step 3, rebuild from the gap and not from scratch. Once you have identified a specific gap, a specific trigger, a specific condition, you don't need to rebuild your whole identity. You need to rehearse that specific situation. What would the new version do? Specifically in that exact moment, under that exact pressure. Just picture it in detail and then look for the next time that situation comes up, because it will, and treat it as the rematch, because each gap that you close this way makes the new identity more pressure proof. One specific situation at a time. So listen to me when you keep going backwards the moment that things get hard. That's not proof that the shift wasn't real. It's proof that the shift just isn't finished and is showing you exactly where to focus next. Because pressure doesn't create who you are. It reveals what's being built so far and what hasn't. So every reversion is a map, it's not a verdict. So name the trigger. Separate the moment from the story and rebuild from that specific gap, not from scratch. Do that enough times, in enough specific situations, and something will start to shift. Not in a how you feel about pressure kind of way, but in a what actually happens when pressure shows up kind of way. And that shift, the quiet, nobody's watching kind, is exactly what the next video is about. Because identity isn't built in the big moments. It's built in those small daily decisions that either vote for the version that you are becoming or voting against it. And most people never even realize why they're voting at all. So remember, drop a comment below. What is the specific situation or type of pressure that sends you back to your old self the fastest? Name it below precisely. By naming it precisely is the first step to closing the gap. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so the next video finds you when you need it. My name's Harley. Do the work, trust the process, and I'll see you in the next one.